White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt defends the Defense Department strikes in the Caribbean after that bombshell report from the Washington Post over the holiday weekend, alleging that Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth gave an order to, quote, kill everybody ahead of that first strike back in September. Here's what Leavitt said earlier in the week.
President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have made it clear that presidentially designated narco-terrorist groups are subject to lethal targeting in accordance with the laws of war. With respect to the strikes in question on September 2nd, Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat to the United States of America was eliminated.
To clarify, Admiral Bradley was the one who gave that order for a second strike.
And he was well within his authority to do so.
In the wake of that article, some service members are now indicating that they're becoming increasingly concerned they may be asked to carry out an illegal order.
A reported Justice Department classified memo from the summer preemptively argued that troops involved in strikes would not be in legal jeopardy, but service members don't seem to be buying it. According to our colleagues reporting here at The Hill, there's been an uptick in calls to the Orders Project, which provides free legal advice to military personnel. Many of these calls have apparently come from the likes of staff officers involved in planning the strikes on supposed drug-carrying boats, as well as those in charge of designating the people on the vessels as a threat, a designation required in order to carry out the attacks.
Frank Rosenblatt joins us now to discuss those service members' concerns. He's the president of the National Institute of Military Justice, which runs the Orders Project. Mr. Rosenblatt, thank you for joining us on Rising. We appreciate it.
Good morning.
So let's start with the obvious. How would you or your organization advise military personnel who receive orders that they have some inclination that they should not follow for legal or constitutional reasons? What is the advice you would give to them?
Well, I'll start off by saying that the temperature on this is very high right now in the country. It's important to us that this not be a partisan issue. And so the National Institute, we've been around since 1991. We have about 100 experts, and we're experts in military law. We have law professors and people who practice for a long time. And the Orders Project started in 2020, so it was part of the Trump and then a Biden administration, and now the Trump administration again. We have seen an increase in activity since September. So because this area is so crowded, it's really important to us that when people know that they call, they're going to be able to speak to some sort of real expert in this area who doesn't have some sort of partisan axe to grind, but is an expert in what the actual military law has to say. And ultimately, what we are about is providing representation when it is needed to help clients achieve their goals.
Also, 6 congressional Democrats put out a video kind of saying that they were reading over what is allowed and what's not allowed in these particular situations. So when the congressional Democrats did suggest that military service members don't have to follow any illegal orders, are there ever questions that come up about what they're doing and whether or not it's an illegal order? And how do you advise people in those situations without risking losing their jobs because they're given an order from someone like the president or someone in extreme high leadership?
Yes, I think what I will say is that in Congress, both Republicans and Democrats have been putting out messages. The Republicans also had a video, and they're largely saying the same thing, but there's a lot of mistrust on this issue. So what we would try to do is, I think, without talking about any sort of individual clients, but what we are about is the basic law of the orders. The military members, they all agreed, we don't have conscripts, but they all agreed to sign up and serve in uniform. And they all have the obligation to obey their orders. Orders are presumed lawful, but they should disagree orders that they know to be unlawful or that are manifestly unlawful.
And I struggle with this because I think that most people, even people who are, let's try to get outside a partisan mindset right now because it is a very partisan issue at the moment. I think most people, if they think through it, even if they're operating in a partisan way, would want a member of the government or a member of the military to not follow through on an order that person thought was blatantly illegal and morally wrong, or maybe violent. We think of images of things done in Vietnam, for instance. We go back far enough back. That's kind of not partisan right now. We broadly accept that we would not want the order shoot someone in the head right now. We would not want that to be done. At the same time, it's obviously becomes a military effectiveness problem if everyone who's part of the force is constantly at all times litigating like the rules, like it's the rules of a board game or something. You're not even gonna, you shouldn't be doing it if that's all you're going to do. If you're consistently finding yourself in that position, I would argue that I guess military service is then not maybe the right calling for you, or government service in general. What is the balance there to arrive at?
Well, my general comment on that would be that I think this has been about lawyers and the law, and I think that's actually not the main point. When we're really good in the military, we are the world's envy with our junior non-commissioned officers and our officers for their ability to take initiative and to know exactly what they're doing and to achieve it. That's why the book A Message to Garcia is so popular in the military. This is a really good thing about this. And so this is a thing of training, right? When we practice and when soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines all train and they know exactly what their job is, then they can, do it with great gusto and accomplish the mission. And that's where we're really successful. And so it has been sort of put a bit of a pause in things and at least caused concern for many when the way they're used to be doing things has, we've had some boundary pushing uses of the military lately. This includes the use of National Guard in cities and these Caribbean boat strikes. There's not really a template for this. So a lot of people are just wanting to tread cautiously and just make sure that they're really, they're very certain that they're right when they're doing something that they haven't done before.
So the big question is then what happens if down the line the use of National Guard in cities or the boat strikes are deemed unlawful? When we come to that conclusion, how are military members then advised to look at that situation for themselves?
Well, it means that the legal advice that our experts provide now is given with a lot of humility. It would take a crystal ball and not legal expertise to say, for example, some National Guard member who's told that they may deploy to Chicago in 2 months. I mean, we can't look and say that's clearly legal or illegal, because every day the courts are coming out with new injunctions, and the injunctions get stayed, and then there's activity on the Supreme Court's emergency docket. So we sit here in a position to say, all right, we're not going to tell you that's a lawful or unlawful order, but what can you do right now? I mean, what is your concern? For example, if you have the chance to not re-enlist later in this year, that may be something that you would want to think about. Or are you going to ask the right questions of your leaders, or interpret the guidance you receive in ways that that would be consistent with the objective, and also things that would still let you retain your honor and integrity?
And also, the law is different in different municipalities. So we're in Washington, D.C. Right now we have the National Guard, or have had the National Guard here for several months to help the police presence, a federalizing of the police approach. The city of D.C. has specific drug laws, for instance, where and what conditions you can smoke marijuana. The police who are here know those laws, and if they violate your rights as a citizen, they can be held accountable in some way. Are the national troops, who may or may not know what specific laws there are to Washington, D.C. or to Chicago or to L.A., but they should not be detained. I think they're not even doing arrests. They can detain people, and then they could have the police come and actually arrest them. They shouldn't be doing that for things that are not illegal idiosyncratically in one city versus another. How would you advise National Guardsmen who are being deployed in the country in these novel ways to handle local specificity in the law?
Well, there are a lot of differences there, and it's an excellent question, because this gets back to like a matter of training. This isn't like say National Guard members in Tennessee or West Virginia. They're picking up their rucksacks and saying, we've got another DC deployment. We know exactly what to do. Everyone knows their job, and let's go do it. Right. All of these situations are different, and some of them are very much pushing the boundaries of legal requirements. For example, the president has every bit of authority to deploy troops under Title 10 of the U.S. Code. But many of the deployments, including to Washington, D.C., have actually been under Title 32 of the code, which is supposed to be a mission that's done through the command and control of the state governor. But in reality, these are looking like missions that are done by through the executive branch, and that's thought of as a way to get around posse comitatus requirements that troops not enforce the law. So many legal issues are coming with these things, and this is becoming a reality for soldiers. They can't just say, I don't care about these things. They have to be informed, because when they're there on the streets in DC, they ought to be able to answer questions about what's my mission, who do I work for, and what's my authority.
Exactly. Frank Rosenblatt will be following this story closely. I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
A new report details the growing number of students who have disability accommodations at prestigious universities. We'll look at how some people feel the system is being exploited.